The story begins with our main character, Gilfaz Eldragon, standing at the very peak of martial arts, or so he believed. Yet, deep inside, he knew there was a summit beyond his reach, one he could never attain no matter how hard he tried. At that moment, wounded and exhausted, he sat against the cold stone wall, his body trembling from countless battles. But his eyes still burned with desire. To defy this truth, he muttered, "I'll chase the legend passed down through generations." That legend spoke of a sacred sanctuary guarded by a divine dragon, where a golden fruit grew, a fruit said to grant immortality to anyone who consumed it. After years of searching and endless struggle, Gilfaz finally stood before the tree of legend. The golden fruit shimmered like the sun itself. He looked upon it, awe filling his heart. "The dragon fruit, it really exists," he whispered. A massive roar echoed across the sky. The divine dragon, guardian of the fruit, descended in fury. What followed was a battle that shook the heavens. In the end, Gilfaz stood victorious, barely alive, his sword drenched in the blood of the divine beast. "I have defeated the divine dragon," he gasped. "Now, with this fruit, I can finally reach the peak of martial arts." Without hesitation, he reached out and plucked the golden fruit. His eyes gleamed with desperate excitement. "I just need to eat it, and everything will change." That man, Gilfaz Eldragon, was once the strongest martial artist in the world. Years later, time had turned his once mighty body frail. Lying on his bed, surrounded by his family, Gilfaz smiled faintly. "It's only a matter of time," he said softly. His eldest son bowed his head, tears welling in his eyes. "Father, please, don't push yourself." Gilfaz chuckled weakly. "Don't make such a pathetic face. My time has simply come." "But father," his son protested, "the eastern state will lose its pillar without you and mother." Gilfaz looked toward the window, his expression calm yet distant. So, the fruit of immortality was just a legend after all. Still, he thought, I was blessed with a wife and children. He gently placed his hand on his grandson's head. "My beloved child, I've lived a long and full life." He closed his eyes with a peaceful smile and whispered, "I have no regrets." But in his heart, he screamed, "What a lie. Of course, I have regrets. If only I had more time. I still want to stand at the true peak of martial arts." His breath slowed. His son cried out, "Father." And so, the great Gilfaz Eldragon drew his final breath, or so it should have ended. When his consciousness returned, Gilfaz blinked in confusion. Was I asleep? He glanced around. The walls were thin, made of paper. His body felt light, too light. He looked at his hands. Tiny. Soft, fragile. "What is this?" he muttered. "These hands, a baby's hands?" Then it hit him, a rush of realization that made his eyes widen. "No way, did I reincarnate?" He took a deep breath, forcing himself to calm down. "All right, Gilfaz, think. How did this happen?" Memories of the golden fruit flashed in his mind. Could it be because of that fruit? Excitement filled him. So the fruit didn't grant immortality, it granted reincarnation. A grin spread across his baby face. What incredible luck. Now, I'll finally reach the true peak of martial arts. He turned his small head, noticing other newborns lying nearby. There are other babies. That means this is a nursery. He thought for a moment, his sharp instincts already analyzing the situation. If I'm in a separate wing of the manor, then I must have been reborn into the Eldragon family again. Gilfaz blinked, scanning the room filled with soft cries and tiny movements. Why are so many babies gathered here? He wondered. Moments later, several maids entered, carrying trays filled with bottles of glowing red liquid. Their gentle smiles seemed normal, but something about the scene made his instincts flare. Time to observe them carefully, he thought, narrowing his eyes. The maids began feeding each child one by one. But then, Gilfaz froze. Among the infants was a small goblin, its skin green and eyes dull. What in the world, he muttered internally. Why is that disgusting creature here? What are they planning? Before he could think further, the goblin suddenly convulsed. Its tiny body twisted in pain, its eyes rolled back, and within seconds, it went completely still. Dead. Gilfaz's heart pounded. What just happened? One of the maids sighed as if nothing was wrong. It should be fine if we dilute it a little more, she murmured, her tone cold and detached. Give it to the next one. Gilfa's eyes widened. What did she just say? Another maid approached him, holding a small bottle of the same crimson liquid. No way, are they planning to feed me that same thing? He wanted to resist, but his body was too weak. The maid gently tilted the bottle to his lips. The moment the liquid touched his tongue, a surge of power tore through his veins. This isn't milk, he thought in shock. This liquid is overflowing with terrifying magic power. He trembled, barely holding on to consciousness. They're feeding something this dangerous to babies? Then, a sudden realization hit him. Wait, this aura, could it be? His eyes widened. This is the blood of an ancient dragon. He could barely believe it. What the hell are these people thinking? Are they insane? The pain intensified, his small body twitching uncontrollably. I need to spit it out, before it's too late, he thought desperately. But then, a conflicting thought struck him. He felt the raw energy pulsing inside him, chaotic yet divine. If I can absorb this, I might surpass even my past self. Despite the unbearable pain, a wild grin formed on his baby face. So this is how fate plays its hand, he thought fiercely. If the gods themselves offer me power, I'll take it all. Summoning every ounce of his will, Gilfaz began circulating his inner energy, the instinctive technique of a martial arts master. His body trembled violently, veins glowing faintly gold as he absorbed the dragon's blood deeper into his cells. The agony was unbearable. Every nerve screamed. Yet his determination only burned brighter. You should never, he gasped in his mind, underestimate Gilfaz Eldragon. And with that, the once great martial god was reborn. Bathed in the blood of a dragon. At that moment, the entire room trembled as Gilfaz's body radiated with the energy of the ancient dragon's blood. The maids froze in disbelief, shocked by the overwhelming power surging from the infant. What kind of child is this? One of them whispered. How could a baby absorb all the dragon blood? But Gilfaz, with his consciousness still intact inside that newborn body, smirked inwardly. I'll absorb every drop of this ancient dragon's true source power, he thought. If I succeed, I might finally reach the pinnacle of martial arts that I never could in my past life. The maids glanced at each other nervously, whispering prayers as Gilfaz continued to absorb the raging power. Meanwhile, he wondered, if I can take this calmly, doesn't that mean this might actually work in my favor? Moments later, he realized the other babies had also survived. So even these infants managed to endure that intensity. A baby's survival instinct is nothing to take lightly, he thought. But exhaustion soon washed over him. Damn, as expected from a baby's body, he muttered weakly before his consciousness faded into sleep. After 7 years later the sun rose over the Eldragon estate. Inside a secluded courtyard, a young boy performed one-handed push-ups with immense focus. 998, he muttered, beads of sweat dripping down his face. With a burst of energy, he kicked off the ground, flipping backward and landing flawlessly. Gilfaz Eldragon, now 7 years old, looked at his reflection in the pond and smirked. This body, it's magnificent, he said quietly. All thanks to the ancient dragon blood. He closed his eyes, recalling the knowledge he had carried from his past life. The true source of this power dwells within all living beings. The ancient dragon's blood we consumed holds vast amounts of that essence, he explained to himself. The babies who had drunk even a small amount of that blood gained bodies far stronger than ordinary humans. But Gilfaz, he had absorbed every drop of the ancient dragon's unique true source power. As he exhaled, red and yellow energy flared around him, swirling like divine fire. I've undergone a complete transformation, he said in awe, even surprising himself. Sitting cross-legged, he sank into deep meditation. My mana heart has formed 1 star, he murmured. But by now, I should have reached at least 4. In this world, each star represented a true source compressed to its limit. The more stars one possessed, the greater their strength became. In his past life, Gilfaz Eldragon had achieved the unprecedented rank of 10 star, the only person in history to ever reach it. He opened his eyes and sighed. Time flies fast. It's already been 7 years since I was reborn as an illegitimate child of the current Eldragon family head. His expression hardened. His mother had passed away long ago, and his father, the current patriarch, had never once visited him. How pathetic, he muttered bitterly. In my past life, I was the head of the Eldragon family. And now, I'm just a forgotten bastard of my own bloodline. He looked up at the distant sky. To think I'd be reborn 1,000 years into the future, that alone was shocking enough. But this world, he clenched his fist tightly. This world has become a place where the strong devour the weak. The clearest proof of that, his eyes darkened at the dragon trial. Gilfaz explained to himself that only the babies who survived the dragon blood trial were supposed to be trained as Eldragon warriors. Yet, strangely, no instructor had ever appeared to train him. As he was lost in thought, his personal maid entered the room. She stood silently, staring at him. Gilfaz frowned. I'm not obligated to answer that, he thought, turning away. 7 years have passed, and not a single instructor has ever come to check on me. In this era, the original owner of his current body was known as GK, but within the family, people now referred to him as Legendary. His true identity, however, was Gilfaz Eldragon, the once strongest warrior in history. He looked at the maid and asked, "Isn't that strange? Shouldn't those who pass the dragon trial be receiving combat training? There's no one here except you." The maid bowed slightly. "Do you require something, young master?" He sighed. "Not exactly. I just think it's odd. But whatever, building my body is more important than combat training for me right now." He adjusted his posture and added, "At the very least, could you tell me something about the other children or the main family?" The maid replied coldly, "I am not at liberty to answer that." Gilfaz's patience snapped. "I'm just asking about the family, you know." Her tone didn't change. "I am not at liberty to answer that." He clenched his fists. "Is that all you can say?" Without hesitation, she repeated, "I am not at liberty to answer that." Gilfaz took a deep breath and muttered, "I'm being mistreated here." The maid calmly replied, "We have been ordered only to tend to your personal needs, young master." Gilfaz narrowed his eyes. "She's a 3-star fighter," he thought. "For basic combat training, she'd be more than enough. Yet I've been left completely alone." He turned away, frustration clear on his face. "Fine. I'm heading into the forest." For 7 years, he had lived with nothing but the bare minimum of instruction. It was far too suspicious. As he left, the maid sighed softly behind him, watching his back fade into the distance. Gilfaz twisted his neck slightly and glanced back. "Now you're ignoring me too? Unbelievable." He entered the forest, picking a handful of green herbs and biting into one raw. "As always, this poisonous root tastes awful," he muttered. "But even this bitter taste is part of my training." Moments later, he paused, his eyes narrowing. "Patience, this presence keeps following me. Can't anyone do something about it?" He sighed again, scanning the trees. "Well, I didn't expect them to show up for something this minor. Honestly, if you've got something to say, just say it." A deep, distorted voice echoed through the woods. Purple mist swirled between the trees, a dark, unfamiliar energy. Gilfaz's expression hardened. "Something's coming," he said quietly. Moments later, a massive anger boar charged from the shadows, releasing waves of violet aura. Gilfaz's eyes widened slightly. That black mist, it didn't exist 1,000 years ago. What is this? The creature roared, slamming its hooves against the ground as it rushed toward him. Gilfaz smiled. Perfect. Hunting time. Golden energy flared from his fist, swirling with immense power. He dashed forward, striking the boar head-on. The impact shattered the ground beneath him. The beast collapsed instantly. He looked down at his glowing hand and sighed. "Just a light tap from a 1-star like me does this much damage. It seems the quality of the star truly matters." Lifting the massive creature onto his shoulder, he muttered, "I'm getting tired of being left alone like this. Maybe it's time I set out on a journey." Gilfaz muttered under his breath, "If I go anywhere, I'll just end up being watched again." But before he could continue his thoughts, the scene shifted. Far away, a mysterious man watched from above, a divine being known as the God of Observation. His gaze fell upon the young member of the Eldragon family. "What's going on?" he murmured. "That child." He formed a star, and took down an anger boar in a single strike, without ever receiving formal training. He folded his arms, his eyes narrowing. "And on top of that, he noticed my presence while I was hiding. That child is far from ordinary." The god continued watching with interest. "His mother died when he was young, and his father has no interest in him. There's no way he could have received proper education. Yet, he's developed strength beyond what should be possible. As a direct descendant of the Eldragon family, he's not allowed to leave the estate, and remains under constant surveillance. A faint smile crossed the god's face. Even though he carries the blood of the master, is that all there is to him? Things are beginning to get interesting. With that, the god's form dissolved into mist, fading from the world once again. Meanwhile, Gilfaz looked around cautiously, sensing that someone had been watching him. "Who's there?" he called out. His sharp senses told him that whoever it was carried immense power, at least 4 or 5-star level. "What could they possibly want with me?" he muttered. He followed the faint sound of voices until he reached a nearby room. Pressing his ear against the door, he listened quietly. "There aren't any rifts nearby," one man said, "so there shouldn't be much chaos here. The air is clear and calm in this countryside, right, Captain?" 2 men were speaking inside, clearly high-ranking warriors from the Eldragon army. Gilfaz frowned. "No killing intent, at least, it doesn't feel like an ambush. Then what are they doing here?" He decided to enter. Pushing the door open, he stepped inside and asked, "What business do you have here?" Both men turned, startled to see him. Their eyes widened in surprise as they recognized him, the child of the Eldragon bloodline. Gilfaz stared back, his curiosity growing stronger. "Just what do they really want from me?" One of the senior men quickly composed himself and bowed slightly. "A pleasure to meet you, young master. We've come to retrieve you. You are to take an examination." Gilfaz froze for a moment, his expression turning from confusion to shock. "An examination?" he repeated. The man nodded calmly. Gilfaz clenched his fists. "No one told me anything about this," he snapped, stepping closer. "What kind of nonsense are you trying to pull on me?" The 2 men exchanged uneasy glances, unsure how to respond to the furious young warrior who had just challenged them head-on. At that moment, Gilfaz Eldragon arrived before the towering gates of the Eldragon family castle. He stood still, gazing at the grand doors, and murmured to himself, "I can't believe it, to think I'd returned to the main house after 17 long years." He recalled the day he was taken from his home by an envoy, the day he was told to return to the main family. A maid approached respectfully and said, "Please, young master, change your clothes. You cannot enter dressed like this." Gilfaz glanced at her, slightly surprised, and silently nodded. He thought to himself, so, the dragon nest. It seems that sometime over the past millennium, the Eldragon family established its own elite educational institution. He remembered what he had learned. Every child born into the Eldragon bloodline must enroll in the dragon nest once they turned 7. That was where their true education began. And today, was the entrance examination. Back in the present, Gilfaz let out a faint smile. "Not that I've prepared for it," he muttered. "But even so, taking the exam is mandatory. That's why I was dragged all the way from the Frontera." He sighed, glancing at his worn backpack. "After everything I prepared, this is what it comes to," he thought, sitting down casually before the castle gates. Just then, a boy with shiny blue hair approached him and extended a hand. "Hey, are you all right?" he asked kindly. Gilfaz raised an eyebrow. The boy continued, "You look like you're in some kind of trouble." "What is it, boy?" Gilfaz asked coldly. The boy chuckled lightly. "I'm Ling Gaze, from Old Scale Village. You just look like you needed help, that's all." Gilfaz studied him for a moment. "This one looks timid, but he's got some nerve," he thought, standing up and brushing off his clothes. "My apologies. Ling Gaze, you said?" "I'm Gilfaz." Ling Gaze froze for a second. "Gilfaz?" The name alone carried a strange weight. "I was just wondering," Gilfaz said calmly, "what exactly they're planning to make us do for this so-called exam." Ling Gaze blinked. "You mean, you don't know the exam content? It's the same every year." Gilfaz tilted his head. "No. I mean I truly don't know what it is." Ling's jaw dropped. "He came here without even knowing that? A man with no backing, is he crazy?" Before he could respond, another voice shouted from behind them. "Hey, you runt!" Ling Gaze. Both turned. A tall, broad-shouldered boy approached, his face twisted in arrogance. Ling's expression tensed up immediately. "Why is a runt like you here?" the bully sneered. "Go home and play babysitter before you embarrass yourself." Ling Gaze clenched his fists. "Oh, of course, I'm here for the dragon nest exam," he stammered. The boy laughed cruelly. "You? Don't make me laugh. Someone like you could never get in. Your father's a mock dragon, isn't he? What can the son of a failure possibly do?" Gilfaz narrowed his eyes. "So that's how it is here, even among the Eldragon bloodline, there's a hierarchy." He thought to himself, the family's ranks are divided by power: hatchlings, young dragons, adult dragons, elder dragons, and at the very bottom, the mock dragons. Those who fail to enter or graduate from the dragon nest. Ling Gaze bit his lip, trembling with frustration. "I'll prove we're not fake," he shouted. Gilfaz stepped forward, his voice calm but sharp. "And why can't he?" The bully glared. "Who the hell are you? You got a problem?" "Not at all," Gilfaz replied smoothly. "It's a genuine question. Why is it impossible for him?" The bully jabbed a finger toward Ling Gaze. "Because they're all weak, that's why." Gilfaz's gaze turned cold. "Weak, huh?" He imagined releasing a bit of his dormant energy. "If only you knew how strong this boy truly is compared to the likes of you." Ling Gaze's eyes widened, shocked by Gilfaz's confidence in him. The bully's face twisted with anger. "What did you say? Are you trying to put yourself beneath him?" Gilfaz didn't even flinch, his calm eyes burning with silent strength. At that moment, the instructor arrived, his voice echoing sharply across the courtyard. "Pay attention. Adult dragon examiners have arrived," he shouted, flashing his golden badge for everyone to see. "The dragon nest entrance exam will now begin. All applicants, after registering, take your number tags and proceed promptly to the second gate in order." The crowd of young candidates stirred into motion. Among them, Renaud smirked arrogantly, glancing back at Gilfaz. "I'll remember your face," he said mockingly. Gilfaz met his gaze, unfazed. "No need to get so angry about it," Renaud sneered. "The youth of today are so short-tempered." Before Gilfaz could reply, Ling Gaze muttered, "We're the same age, aren't we?" Gilfaz let out a small laugh. "Besides, anyone would get angry if someone told them they were weaker. Try not to look down on others, that might save you trouble someday." Renaud scoffed but said nothing, walking away. As they moved toward the exam area, Gilfaz thought to himself, this entrance exam, isn't it strange? To say it's impossible for someone to pass, what an absurd claim. That Renaud really is a complete fool. Ling's eyes widened a bit. "Well, you can withdraw if it's clear you lack ability," he whispered. "But you really don't know anything about the test, do you? How are you going to?" "Wait, what? We can withdraw?" Gilfaz interrupted, genuinely surprised. Ling smiled nervously. "Why yeah, maybe you should too, you might avoid getting hurt." Gilfaz's expression hardened slightly. "Someone of my caliber could never withdraw, even if I wanted to." Ling blinked, speechless. "You're so confident, even though you don't know the content of the exam." Gilfaz shrugged lightly, a faint grin crossing his face. "Whatever. Come on, the exam's about to start." Ling sighed. Yeah. A few minutes later, the instructor stepped forward again, voice booming. "The task is simple," he announced. "If you can scratch this rock, you pass. No weapons are permitted other than those we provide. Bare hands are acceptable. As long as you leave a visible mark, that's all that matters." A dark smile crossed his face. "You each have 3 attempts only." Gilfaz tilted his head, his tone casual. "What a remarkably lenient task." Ling blinked at him. "Lenient? You really think so?" Gilfaz thought silently. "It's just an exam where you have to scratch a rock, isn't it? I was expecting something like the dragon trial, some insane ritual. But this seems trivial." Moments later, the first contestant stepped up. He gathered his energy and struck the stone with all his might, boom. But the shockwave rebounded, and the boy collapsed instantly, unconscious. The instructor calmly took notes. "First attempt failed. 2 remaining. Do you wish to try again?" Another examiner whispered, smirking, "Consider that a forfeiture. Take him away." The next candidate stepped forward nervously. Gilfaz glanced at Ling. Why does this child look so terrified? It's only an exam. His gaze drifted toward the rock, and his expression stiffened. "What is that thing?" he murmured. That, Ling said quietly, is a regeneration stone. It can repair any damage almost instantly. And if you hit it with brute force, it reflects the impact hundreds of times stronger. It's pretty terrifying. Gilfaz frowned. That's an outrageous material. Ling nodded. But if you properly circulate ether source power through your body when you strike, it will take a scratch. That's the key. I see, Gilfaz thought aloud. So, it's less about martial strength and more about control of your ether power. He watched as one candidate after another failed miserably. It seems only a handful will pass this test, even those arrogant ones from before, he murmured. Instructor. Number 51, disqualified, another examiner shouted. One by one, students fell short. Then, next number 315. Gilfaz looked down at his tag and smiled faintly. My turn. Ling's face tensed. Maybe, you should still withdraw, he suggested weakly. There's no need to worry about me, Gilfaz said calmly. Ling blinked. You're really confident. The instructor raised his voice. Candidate 315, do you wish to use a weapon? But before anyone could react, a surge of etheric energy rippled through the air. The instructor's eyes widened in disbelief as glowing light poured from Gilfaz's body, faint but impossibly dense. Gilfaz gave a soft, confident smile. No, he said. That won't be necessary. The instructor looked at Gilfaz and asked in disbelief, You're really not going to use a weapon? Gilfaz stood calmly in front of the massive testing stone and replied, Yes. I don't need one. My fists will be more than enough. The crowd erupted into whispers. He's planning to take the test with his bare hands? No matter how skilled he is with ether, a bare fist can't damage that stone. His arm will be torn apart before he even leaves a scratch. The murmurs spread across the area. Lingas, standing among the examinees, clenched his fists nervously. I knew it, he thought. I should have tried harder to stop him. His legs trembled slightly as he watched Gilfaz step forward. The instructor stared at him for a long moment before saying coldly, Very well then. Begin. Gilfaz placed his palm on the dark, gleaming surface of the magic stone. This mineral, it's unlike anything I've ever seen, he murmured. It must have formed sometime during the last 1,000 years. There's so much I still don't understand. Then, with a faint smile, he added, Well, it doesn't matter. Golden energy began to gather around his fist, radiating a fierce light. Lingas panicked and shouted, Gilfaz, no. Stop. But it was too late. Gilfaz's eyes flashed with excitement as he unleashed his energy. This should be enough to handle my full strength, he declared. He thrust his glowing fist forward, performing the Dragon Slayer combat technique. The moment his punch connected, a deafening explosion shook the arena. The shockwave was immense, blasting dust and mist into the air, shaking the ground beneath their feet. Lingas shielded his face from the impact, eyes wide in disbelief. The instructor stood frozen, his expression dark and speechless. When the dust settled, the testing stone, known for being unbreakable, was shattered into countless fragments. Gilfaz stood at the center, his fist lowered, golden energy fading from his hand. He examined the rubble and muttered, It seems this technique is still a little too advanced for me. My training isn't quite enough yet. He smiled faintly, as if nothing extraordinary had happened. The entire crowd fell silent, jaws dropped. Renaud, the arrogant boy from earlier, stared with wide eyes. He actually destroyed it? That's insane. A blonde girl nearby whispered, Interesting, that was incredible. Lingas could only stare, still trying to process what he had just witnessed. Meanwhile, the instructor's thoughts raced in disbelief. Impossible. That was a regeneration stone, only someone at 4-star rank or higher could destroy it. How could this child do that? He's supposed to be an illegitimate son. Did he inherit the power of the Eldragon bloodline? Then, a memory surfaced in the instructor's mind. That move. I've seen it before. Gilfaz noticed the man's fixed stare and asked casually, Excuse me, Mr. Examiner. How did I do? What's my result? The instructor coughed, trying to compose himself. Candidate 315, you pass. Gilfaz smiled lightly. Another instructor hurried over, holding out a potion. Please, master, take this. Gilfaz glanced at it suspiciously. What's this supposed to be? Move out of the way, will you? The man muttered, trying to offer it. Gilfaz frowned, his expression turning slightly irritated. Is this what they give as a reward these days? He clicked his tongue and sighed, what's ridiculous? Lingus rushed toward Gilfaz and grabbed his hand, his eyes sparkling with excitement. You were amazing, Gilfaz. You destroyed that whole stone. Gilfaz puffed his chest proudly and replied with a smirk, yeah, calm down a little. Then, he noticed a potion bottle in his hand and frowned. By the way, Lingus, what's this nonsense? Lingus blinked. Oh, that? You got a healing potion. Gilfaz raised an eyebrow. A healing potion? What's that supposed to mean? Lingus took the bottle and examined it closely before uncorking it. Yeah, it's normal grade. Gilfaz narrowed his eyes. It doesn't look poisonous, but could this actually be an elixir? He recalled what he had read, an elixir, a potion made from extremely rare materials, crafted from herbs that grow only in secret realms, infused with pure elixir cores, and essence from divine or phantom beasts. Drinking it heals not just recent wounds but even old injuries instantly while greatly enhancing one's ether. Because the ingredients are so rare and dangerous, refining one is nearly impossible. They almost never appear on the market. With curiosity winning over doubt, Gilfaz drank the potion in one go. Instantly, his entire body glowed with radiant purple energy. His eyes widened in shock. Really? So this is an elixir? Lingus tilted his head, confused. Elixir? I don't know what that is, but the healing potions made by the House of Eldragon are definitely better than any store-bought ones, you know. Gilfaz chuckled. Is that so? It's astonishing. My wounds healed instantly. He frowned slightly. Still, there's no ether surge like with a real elixir. Lingus smiled brightly. But Gilfaz, you're more impressive than the potion itself. Gilfaz scoffed. Few people say nonsense like that, Lingus. Lingus laughed. It's true. You're ridiculously strong. Aren't you? Gilfaz replied casually, well, I'm aiming to be the strongest. Lingus blinked. You just dropped something insane like that so casually. Meanwhile, Renaud, who had been listening to their cheerful conversation for quite some time, clenched his fists and muttered, how ridiculous, what are these idiots even talking about? Just then, the instructor's voice echoed through the arena. Candidate 382, pass. One by one, other candidates completed their trials and received their healing potions. Lingus looked toward a small boy from the Eldragon family and whispered, their passing was expected. Then came the next announcement. Next candidate, Lingus Gaze. Lingus took a deep breath. It's my turn. I need to do this. A boy standing beside Gilfaz teased, what's wrong? Nervous? You'll be fine. Pull yourself together. Gilfaz grinned and cheered, you got this, Lingus. Tears welled in Lingus's eyes as he muttered, don't raise the bar so high, please. He gripped his sword tightly, and the instructor shouted, begin. Lingus charged forward, channeling all his energy into the strike, but his blade barely touched the stone before he was thrown backward, crashing to the ground. The instructor checked his notes. First attempt, Lingus Gaze, failed. 2 attempts remaining. Lingus groaned and stood up. One more time. I'll do it for sure this time. He swung again with all his might, but failed once more. The sword rebounded, and he fell to his knees, panting. From behind, Renaud burst into laughter. I knew it. A half-dragon will always be a half-dragon. How could he possibly break that stone? The bullies joined in. Just give up already. Remember what he said? That Lingus kid was supposed to be stronger than us, right? They laughed harder, mocking both Lingus and Gilfaz. The instructor sighed. Lingus, you have one last attempt. Do you wish to continue? Lingus trembled. His ears filled with whispers, taunts, laughter, his heart sank into despair. Then, a firm voice broke through the noise. Hey, what are you doing? Lingus looked up. Gilfaz was walking toward him, his expression calm but sharp. Why aren't you using a spear? Gilfaz asked. Lingus blinked. A spear? What do you mean? Gilfaz crossed his arms. Exactly what it sounds like. Why wield a weapon that doesn't suit you? You're swinging that sword without a plan. Renaud sneered. Ha! As if switching weapons will help. Your old man didn't even teach you how to use a spear, did he? Ignoring him, Gylfis turned toward the examiner. Mr. Instructor, switching weapons mid-test isn't against the rules, is it? The instructor shook his head. No, it's not. Gylfis smirked. You hear that, Lingus? Then stop hesitating. This is your chance. His tone grew intense, his eyes sharp as lightning. So, will you really walk away like this? Lingus froze, his mind flashing back to his past, those days filled with humiliation, laughter, and failure. Then, slowly, he clenched his fists. His fear turned into determination. He stood tall and said with a steady voice, "No, Gylfis. I'll try again, this time with the spear." At that moment, Lingus's past memories flickered in his mind. My father was never allowed into the dragon nest. When I was a child, they mocked him, calling him a Pazadu dragon. But even so, father never gave in, and he raised me. I am Lingus because of him. Somehow, I will prove I am not a fake. In the present, he gripped his spear tightly. Today, right here, I will prove it. Even if I tried again with the sword, the result would have been the same. Then I will believe in Gylfas's words, but how am I supposed to use a spear? Suddenly, Gylfas pointed at the stone. Just thrust it straight, he instructed. Don't overthink it. Just thrust forward. Lingus tightened his grip. Straight ahead, he whispered to himself. Gylfas watched with a smile. Normally, there's no way someone holding a spear for the first time could just thrust it straight and damage a regeneration stone. But how will I know if he hasn't even tried yet? Lingus took a deep breath. We only met today, maybe it's strange, but I'll give it a try. Gylfas believes in me, so I will believe in myself too. He took a stance, feeling the ether source energy flow through the spear. Even when I held a sword before, I never felt energy like this. He struck into the center of the reincarnation stone. Renard suddenly stood, laughing mockingly. See? Switching weapons makes no difference. But Lingus felt something strange. It feels like it's part of me from the start. He thrust again, and this time, his strike was immense and powerful. Renard's eyes widened in shock, his mouth hanging open. What is happening? The instructor, equally amazed, whispered, not just a scratch, he pierced it completely. Lingus's heart raced as he heard Gylfas clap. Splendid, well done, Lingus. Lingus was stunned. What? Did I just do it? The instructor announced, candidate number 440, you passed. Tears filled Lingus's eyes as disbelief washed over him. Gylfas stepped closer, smiling broadly. That's right. You did it. Just as I thought, you passed. He hugged Lingus tightly. Lingus whispered, almost crying, really, thank you so much, Gylfas. That's what I told you, Gylfas replied calmly. Meanwhile, Renard scoffed. It was just luck, right? At that moment, the instructor announced, the test is over. From here, we begin the entrance ceremony. Gylfas tilted his head. Entrance ceremony? That was the only test. Lingus nodded. Yes, there may be another exam after we enter. But for now, it's not up to us. The head of the Eldragon family will give us their congratulations. Gylfas's gaze shifted to the patriarch of the Eldragon family. The man radiated immense strength, his presence almost suffocating. Who is that gloomy man? Gylfas muttered. Lingus trembled. That is our family patriarch. Lord Beleza Eldragon. Didn't you recognize him? Gylfas frowned. The head with that face, can't he look more lively? Lingus quickly covered Gylfas's mouth. Please, just be quiet. Gylfas relaxed slightly but continued to observe. The family's aura was overwhelming, several 6th-star level fighters were present. And the patriarch himself, Beleza Eldragon, exuded an 8th-star level power. 1,000 years ago, there were barely a dozen like him, who knows how many now. Gylfas muttered, I don't like him. This is father's word from Lord Beleza. He focused, releasing his own power. Become the flesh and blood of the Eldragon. A dark red aura radiated from Gylfas, filling the arena. Whispers spread among the children. His power, it's impossible to even breathe. Lingus struggled under the suffocating pressure, unable to take a full breath. Even other children seemed crushed by the patriarch's overwhelming presence. Then, Lord Beleza suppressed his aura and stepped back. The senior instructor clapped, saying, "Well, such gracious words indeed. Lord Beleza has high expectations for all of you." At that moment, Gilfaz thought, "Who is that? Another man. Perhaps I'll skip the formal greetings and keep it short." The senior man laughed and said, "Straving young horns." Another man added, "Honestly, it's all just a matter of wording. Keep fussing over small things, and you'll go bald." Philingus whispered to himself, "I don't know what's going on, but this change in atmosphere is a relief." All the children felt more at ease. Suddenly, the examiner announced, "Now, we will reveal the dormitory assignments. Those called, move at once." Gilfaz asked, "We're not all going to the same place?" Philingus explained, "Right. The Dragon Nest has 4 dorms. Students admitted to the building are assigned to one of the 4, east, west, north, or south." Then the instructor called, "Philingus, number 315. He stood and said, "That's me. Please take care of me." With a polite nod, he said goodbye and made his way to the Dragon Nest East dorm. The castle was magnificent, with soaring towers and a beauty that seemed almost unreal. Inside, Gilfaz muttered, "So things really have changed after 1,000 years. Let's see. Turn here. This must be it. Good grief, I got lost and ended up late. My roommate must already be inside." He tapped on the door, opened it, and stepped in. "Sorry to keep you waiting. From today, we'll be sharing this room." Suddenly, his eyes widened in shock at the person standing before him. Gilfaz Eldragon was suddenly surprised to see Lingus in his dormitory. He froze for a moment, then said with a charming smile, "It really feels like I have a connection with you." Lingus replied softly, "Yes, it does. I was feeling kind of lonely on my own." At that moment, Gilfaz sat on the bed and said, "Today, I don't think we have any plans." Lingus nodded. "You're right. Anyway, training starts tomorrow. Are you ready?" Gilfaz made a moody face. "I see. Don't worry." Lingus was taken aback by his behavior. "Wait, you didn't know? The instructor told us, you know." Gilfaz chuckled, excitedly saying, "I wasn't paying attention to him." "That shouldn't be something you're so proud of." Lingus shrugged. "Anyway, we should get some sleep. Training starts first thing tomorrow." Gilfaz made an annoyed face. "Okay, fine." Later, Gilfaz sat by the window, staring outside. He thought to himself, "I was planning to ditch this boring place and go on a journey or something." The exam with the reincarnation stone had shown him so many interesting things, 1,000 years of changes wrapped up in one place. He smirked. Sticking with House Eldragon a little longer, that doesn't sound so bad. A month later, training began. Every kid assumed a posture to train their body, and it felt like hell. Many cried under the strain. The instructor shouted, commanding them to practice the dragon breathe. "What I am teaching you now is an incredible breathing method created by the 15th head of House Eldragon." Lingus could barely keep up. He trembled as he gripped the iron stone, fully drained and struggling with the stressful posture. The instructor observed carefully, moving among the students. His attention was drawn to a young lady whose golden hair spilled over her shoulders, a sign that she was close to reaching the 2nd star. He noted quietly that some of the students had already mastered the dragon breathe technique. He stood there, staring, and muttered, then, "Him. What's strange? He's so immense. Maybe he really did inherit the power of the head of the Eldragon family." At that moment, Gilfaz Eldragon held a massive stone on his head and 2 smaller stones in his hands, his body fully covered with energy from the strongest technique. The instructor felt a surge of distress. He had no teacher, so he shouldn't know anything. "What is this?" he whispered to himself, thinking about his patriarch and wondering why he hadn't tried to teach personally. Gilfaz spoke calmly, "My breathing technique, the Dragon King Breathe, was modified and passed down as the Dragon Breathe. This technique draws ether from the air into your body and circulates it. How well it works depends on the user's skill and creativity. That's why each noble house refines it in their own style and keeps the completed technique tightly guarded." He continued, "The Dragon Breathe is safe and easy to learn, but if it only works while standing still, it's useless to me." He reflected on his past life. The dragon's secret art, the Dragon King breathe technique, is the only method that allows you to use ether while moving without breaking your breath. Its effects are immense, but only a few inherited it because of its difficulty. I simplified it so anyone could use it and strengthen the clan. I never thought it would evolve and survive for 1,000 years. I am deeply moved. The Dragon King breathe has really improved multiple times. Perhaps many other martial arts have changed over time too, which is delightful. He smiled to himself. At that moment, Alea stared at Gilfa's Eldragon, silently observing him. Some time later, inside the dormitory, all the students gathered to eat. Many were shocked by Gilfa's unusual behavior. He ate like a monster, unable to contain his hunger, devouring everything continuously. Finally, he looked at Lingus and said, "What's wrong, Lingus? You look so tired." Lingus replied hesitantly, still astonished by Gilfa's appetite, "You won't get strong if you don't eat, you know." Sitting across from him, Lingus felt completely overwhelmed and bewildered. "Why are you so full of energy?" he asked, unable to hide his surprise. Lingus looked at him in disbelief. "Isn't your stamina drained?" Gilfa's Eldragon glanced up, a faint smile on his face. "You're just weak. Eat more and train harder," he said casually, offering advice about taking in more meals. "Well, I guess I have to do this," Lingus thought. "Eat your own food." "I'm completely exhausted," he muttered, still recovering. Despite that, he smiled inwardly, noticing how well-trained some of the others were. Lingus couldn't help but feel admiration for Reynard. At that moment, the golden-haired young lady arrived. She greeted them warmly. "Hello," she said, turning her attention to Gilfa's Eldragon. "You're amazing." Gilfaz looked up with a curious smile. "Who are you?" he asked. Lingus nearly spat out his drink, disbelief written all over his face. "What is that bastard saying?" But he quickly tried to stop Gilfaz. "You don't know? She's the eldest daughter, Leica," he whispered urgently. "I had no idea," Gilfaz replied casually. Leica's expression twisted with embarrassment and disbelief. "How could they not know about me?" she thought, feeling almost like a Momo. Lingus trembled. "No way, she's one of the candidates for next year's head. We shouldn't even be talking to her," he muttered. Gilfaz remained calm. "Then I'm the head son, you know." Leica's eyes widened. "Is that true? Really? You're the head's illegitimate child?" As a next head candidate, she was naturally cautious. "I won't gain anything by lying to you," Gilfaz said, returning his focus to his meal. Leica pressed on, her tone insistent. "Then how are you strong enough to smash a reincarnation stone with your bare hands? Tell me." Gilfaz ignored her and continued eating. "Well, because it's me," he replied. Then he turned to Lingus. "Stop spacing out and eat." Lingus, still a little confused, nodded. "Okay," he said, resuming his meal. Leica felt a pang of irritation, as if the illegitimate child was ignoring her. But she quickly composed herself, smiling. "You really are something," she said, then sat beside Gilfaz, excitement in her voice. "How about joining me?" Gilfaz frowned slightly, uninterested. "What do you mean by that?" "I'm asking you to become my subordinate," Leica explained. "I'll be your backer. You're an illegitimate child, so you need allies, right? Use your power to help me become the next head. Of course, I'll reward you generously when I succeed. What do you think?" Gilfaz leaned back, arrogantly straightforward. "No thanks." Leica felt insulted, as though he had completely disregarded her. "Why not? Don't tell me." Her anger flared. This was the second time Gilfaz had ignored and disrespected her. "You're after the head position too." "Thank you," she snapped, storming off in frustration. At that moment, Gilfaz Eldragon observed her closely. She's on the verge of becoming a 2-star. She can project her ether outside her body. It's impressive to achieve this at her age. But he remained unfazed. "Do what you want. I don't care about becoming the head. As for matters of the house, I won't make a mess," he said calmly. She shouted, "What? Then why can't you become my subordinate?" Gilfaz's expression darkened instantly. Anger flared in him at the audacity of her words. He grabbed his fork and spoon, striking them down onto the table. The sheer force of his aura caused the table to freeze and crack under him. A cold, deathly aura radiated from him as he growled, "I won't serve anyone. I am the strongest Eldragon. Do you understand?" His gaze was so terrifying that it made her tremble. "What?" she stammered, stepping back instinctively. "I'm intimidated, he's horrifying," she thought. Calming herself, she said, "Then, please calm down." Yet, her determination did not waver. "I will keep trying until I win," she declared, challenging Gilfaz directly. Both Gilfaz and Lingus were stunned, exchanging incredulous glances. What nonsense is she trying to say? Lingus thought. Meanwhile, some of the boys nearby were talking about the arena. "Where are you going?" one asked. "To the ground training," another replied. "One of the cadets for the head's fighting. And it's a lady like us. A lady from House Trifonia? Who's doing this?" another boy exclaimed in surprise. The training arena's screen displayed the scene. Gilfaz and Lingus arrived on the ground, with several cadets watching intently from behind. "It's really a duel. Who is that?" one boy murmured. Gilfaz frowned. Strangely, this turned serious. Lingus stepped forward nervously. "Excuse me, is this really okay? That's Lady Leica, you know. Why don't you drop this fight?" he tried to explain, panic in his voice. Gilfaz didn't respond immediately. "I don't know about her," he said finally. "Even if you say that, more importantly, why are you suddenly so formal?" "Obvious, you are the head son," Lingus replied. "Do you, what?" Gilfaz said, confused. Lingus desperately tried to insist. "Please, hear me out. Lady Leica is the daughter of Lord Beleza, the current head. She also has Trifonia blood, one of the 4th great houses backing Eldrazi." He grabbed Gilfaz's arm, shaking. "Lord Beleza's daughter is a supreme genius. At just 7, she mastered every form of House Trifonia, Thunder Spirit, Great Sword Arts." Gilfaz, however, remained unmoved. "Sorry, but I only know she's the head dragon's daughter. That's all I need." Lingus shouted in frustration, "Why? Can't you understand?" His face went pale, disbelieving. At that moment, Lingus shouted, exasperated, "For heaven's sake. No matter how strong you are, you don't stand a chance against Lady Leica." Gilfaz Eldragon paused for a moment, trying to understand why he had accepted the challenge. Calmly, he replied, "When someone challenges me, I don't run." His eyes locked onto Leica, assessing her. She looked more than ready. Leica's gaze was icy. "You brats, enough chatter. Are you ready to fight me?" she said, her voice sharp. She gripped her strongest sword tightly, assuming a swordmaster's posture, and the terrifying aura within her surged outward, radiating overwhelming power. At that moment, Leica shouted, "Don't waste time. Are you ready to fight?" Gilfaz Eldragon replied calmly, "I am more than ready." "Lingus, run!" Lingus shouted back, "Just please be careful." Now, it was just Gilfaz and Leica in the arena. He studied her closely and asked, "Be careful, isn't that you? Why are you so determined to fight me?" Leica's eyes burned with anger. "Because I will be the next head. To claim that seat, I must defeat you and make you serve under my command." Gilfaz frowned, annoyed. "And what does that have to do with me?" She retorted sharply, "Do you really not understand your own family? Is it because you are just a bastard child that you cannot claim the seat of patriarch?" In his mind, Gilfaz thought, "That girl doesn't know I am the first head of the Eldragon family." But he said aloud, "If you are asking whether I know, then of course, I know what's going on." Leica's gaze hardened. "Listen carefully. Counting you and me, there are 5 heirs competing for the next head. Everyone except you carries blood from one of the 4th great houses of Eldragon. They are the strongest candidates to become patriarch. Which house produces the head is what truly matters. Here, in the Dragon Nest, we are all fighting for the pride of our bloodline. To stand against my brothers, I need more allies." She insisted, desperately trying to make Gilfaz her ally and subordinate. Gilfaz replied calmly, "The 4th great houses are all competing for the head. It's really complicated. I don't fully understand it, but I see now. That is quite a tangled situation." Leica gripped her sword tightly. "In any case, as a candidate, I must secure my place. That's why I desperately want to fight you," she declared. She moved swiftly across the arena and leaped toward Gilfaz Eldragon with her sword raised. "I will definitely defeat you," she shouted. Gilfaz did nothing immediately. Calmly, he shifted his foot back and effortlessly dodged her attack. She struck again toward his face, but his movements were smooth, precise, and almost superhuman in their fluidity. He dodged each blow as if practicing a martial art far beyond her comprehension. "You won't escape," another candidate whispered in awe. "Gilfaz is incredibly fast, even with just a training blade. She swings that massive sword like it's nothing," another observer commented. Leica continued to strike relentless, but Gilfaz effortlessly avoided every attack. A boy observing murmured, "Her true source power flows sharp and steady, but his strikes are faster. So this is what it means to be a child of the head from one of the fourth great houses. It's only a matter of time before this is decided." Leica's relentless attacks continued, but Gilfaz simply dodged, a mocking smile playing across his face as he toyed with her. Frustration grew on her face. "I can't land a single decisive attack on him." Lingus watched in amazement at his friend's skill. Suddenly, Gilfaz spoke, "This style, I have never seen it before. That speed. It's hard to believe you are only a 1-star. "Shut up, just fight me," Leica shouted. Gilfaz's expression turned serious. "If you won't fight properly, then I will take the initiative." He stepped forward, delivering a precise, small punch to her stomach. Leica coughed violently, staggering as she tried to steady herself while still gripping her sword. From behind, a cadet whispered, "No way. Leica, who is this guy? She's actually being defeated by him?" Leica struggled, glaring at him. "Why can't I hit you? I'm supposed to be faster than any 1-star. Gilfaz smiled mockingly. "True, you are faster than most 1-stars I've encountered, but in the end, you are still only a 1-star. She snapped, "You're 1-star too. You can't keep up with me." He calmly explained, smiling, "It's simple. Your breath, the twitch of your muscle, the shift of your eyes, if I track those, I can read your movements. The rest is just experience." Leica attacked again furiously. "Don't be absurd. I will definitely defeat you." Her sword came dangerously close to Gilfaz's face, but he flipped backward and delivered another precise punch to her stomach. "I already told you," he said calmly. Leica was sent flying through the air like a paper plane, crashing against the arena wall. The cadets watching gasped in shock. "Lady Leica, no way, did she actually lose this fight?" At that moment, Lingus exclaimed excitedly, "Hey, bro, incredible. You really beat Leica." Gilfaz Eldragon shook his head calmly. "No, it's not finished yet," he replied. Leica slowly rose to her feet, her body trembling but her resolve unbroken. She leaped forward again. Gilfaz smiled faintly. "To gather true source power in your core to withstand the blow, that is impressive." Lingus looked confused, trying to understand. Leica, still injured from the previous attack, took another decisive strike from Gilfaz. She coughed, struggling to stand. Lingus gasped. "Lady Leica, if you keep this up." Gilfaz interrupted with a calm smile. "Hey, you really need to step back. If you get caught up in this, I won't be responsible." She narrowed her eyes. "I suspected as much, but I've already reached 2-star. She summoned her 2-star mana energy, and the other candidates watched in awe. That's amazing." "No doubt," one cadet whispered. "It's the mark of 2-star aura." The narrator explained, "The 2-star realm is where one can project true source power outside the body for martial art. This projection is called an aura." Leica turned to Gilfaz. "I owe this to you. Because of you, I've broken through to 2-star. She raised her sword, golden energy flaring around it. "You don't stand a chance this time," she shouted. Gilfaz smiled, eyes glinting. He dodged her attack effortlessly. But this time, Leica's speed had doubled, her movements almost insane. "Now that's expected," Gilfaz murmured, impressed. Suddenly, he felt a sharp sting on his cheek. A faint cut had appeared, and he touched it in surprise. "I'm sure I dodged that," he muttered. Leica's eyes shone with fierce determination. "How was that?" "That is my strength," she declared, releasing her golden energy. "With my 2-star aura awakened, you will face the true Thunder Spirit Great Sword Art." Immense golden energy surged around her as she charged, preparing to overwhelm Gilfaz. He watched intently, excitement sparking in his eye. "I get to witness yet another style, one I've never seen before. And I'm not nervous this time about being defeated. This is absolutely incredible. You really do have skill, and I will watch your entire style carefully." At that moment, Leica released an immense flash of thunderlight, launching a fierce strike toward Gilfaz. He quickly moved aside, startled. "Wait, what is that? How are you wielding lightning?" he exclaimed. Leica smirked. "That's just insane, isn't it?" she said, as her golden aura flared wildly. Gilfaz could only laugh softly, genuinely enjoying the thrill of the fight. Leica, completely consumed by the battle, slammed her sword into the ground, releasing another surge of golden energy. "For someone who says that," she shouted, "you sure look like you're enjoying yourself." Gilfaz smoothly dodged her strike, countering calmly, divine grind, outlet capture, impressive. His tone shifted, and his expression turned serious. No matter how you look at it, this is too much. That lightning, in my current state, it's going to be tough to handle. He rushed forward, thinking to himself, can just one star really make this much of a difference? The candidates watching from the stands were tense, unable to take their eyes off the fight. Lingus clenched his fists, feeling the pressure of the battle deep in his chest. Meanwhile, Gilfaz analyzed the situation carefully. Her movements themselves are simple, no different from before. But ever since she became a 2-star, that so-called Thunder Spirit Greatsword art exploded in power. She was fast before, but now, she's on another level entirely. And being wrapped in lightning like that, it was impossible even 1,000 years ago. He smiled faintly. I could counterattack right, but I can't help being curious about what that power really is. From the sidelines, Lingus shouted, you're smiling in this situation? You must have a lot of confidence. Leica roared, I'll wipe that smug grin off your face, and rushed at him with even greater speed. Her blade gleamed with the force of thunder itself. She invoked her technique, Thunderclash. Lightning wrapped around her blade as she closed in at blinding speed. Gilfaz barely raised his sword in time to meet her strike. The clash sent him flying back, his body slamming against the arena wall. Gilfaz! Lingus yelled, leaping over the balcony, desperate to reach him. But Gilfaz stood up slowly, smiling through the dust and blood, as if the damage didn't matter. His posture was steady, unshaken. Leica charged again, releasing a lightning flash that split the ground. Gilfaz dodged effortlessly. Lingus ran forward. Lady Leica, stop, you'll kill him. She glared at him. Why is he still standing? Lingus met her gaze. Can't you see? Stopping now would only insult him. Leica's grip tightened. If he surrenders and swears loyalty to me, I'll stop right here. She turned toward Gilfaz with a confident smile. So even as an illegitimate child, you still carry the Eldragon pride? Fine then. I'll use every ounce of my strength to end this. Her aura flared like a storm. Thunder Spirit Greatsword Art. Heavenly Thunder Strike. The sky itself roared as lightning crashed down upon the arena. The impact sent shockwaves through the ground. Gilfaz took the full brunt of the blast, his body trembling in pain. He fell to his knees, his sword embedding into the dirt. My apologies, he muttered weakly. The match is over. But before he could finish, a golden surge of energy erupted behind him. A cold, powerful voice echoed across the arena. I see what you were aiming for. Leica froze, her eyes wide in disbelief. What? Why can you use electricity? Gilfaz straightened, smirking confidently. So this is what you call electricity? Interesting. He tilted his head, his eyes glowing faintly. And why ask if that's enough? Leica stepped back, completely shocked. How is that even possible? Gilfaz replied calmly, I was purposely taking your hits, to study your power. But somehow, I can use it now too. She stared in disbelief. You can use it? That's impossible. Gilfaz smiled faintly. I have no clue either. Gilfaz looked at his hand, electricity flickering across his fingers. While I was taking those strange attacks on my body, he said calmly, I kept using my Dragon King's breath. And guess what? Your lightning energy reacted to it. The lightning started building up inside me, and before I realized it, I could control it myself. Leica's eyes widened in disbelief. Gilfaz smiled faintly. I don't really understand the detail, but you must have a rare kind of body. Since that greatsword art is a family technique, should assume your entire clan has a special constitution. To think true source power itself could fuse with lightning. He glanced at his hand again, where the lightning arced brightly. That was a great lesson, he added. Most importantly, he raised his hand, letting the golden lightning flare. Thanks to you, I've become a 2-star too. This fight isn't over. Leica's eyes sharpened. Then come, she shouted, slashing forward with her blade. The two collided again, sparks of thunder and lightning bursting across the arena. The candidates watching held their breath. Gilfaz, however, was calm, focused. A small smile crossed his face. This fight's not over yet, he said, stepping forward and delivering a swift punch that clashed with her energy-infused sword. Electricity surged around him. He analyzed it carefully. When true source power is infused with lightning properties, it stimulates the muscles and nerves throughout the body, strengthening them. What a blazing, extraordinary power. He clenched his fist, smirking. I think I'm starting to get the hang of this. From the sidelines, Lingus watched in awe. A battle between successors to the head of the Eldragon family. Even keeping up with them is beyond me. Or is that just my imagination? Inside the arena, Leica swung again, her lightning slash flashing like a storm, but none of her attacks could reach Gilfaz anymore. He moved through the battlefield like flowing air, reading her every move. Leica grew frustrated. "Are you mocking me?" she shouted. Gilfaz shook his head with a calm smile. "Not at all. I genuinely see you as a real threat." In a swift motion, he kicked her sword upward with the precision of flowing wind and leapt back, stretching his arms casually. "Is this about right?" he murmured. "Guess it's time to finish this." He looked at his hands, his eyes glowing faintly with light. "It's been a while, but how about I try creating something new, a new technique?" Leica frowned in confusion. "New technique?" Gilfaz nodded. "Let's write a new form. No, let's call it a special form." She froze. "A technique? Does that mean he was trained in some secret combat art? Which house could that be from? Can someone really just make one up like that?" Her thoughts were spinning. A special form. Dragon-slaying art. Could it be something like that? But before she could react, storm around Gilfaz began to rage. "Tempest of thunder technique," he declared. The air cracked with pure lightning. The pressure alone made her knees buckle. Leica fell to one knee, unable to withstand his aura. She swung her sword desperately, but her strength was fading. Moments later, she collapsed, her consciousness slipping away. Gilfaz exhaled softly, lowering his arm. "That was a fascinating fight," he said, his voice filled with quiet admiration. Leica stirred, trying to force herself up again, refusing to accept defeat. "I have to become the next head," she gasped. Her mind flashed with memories, her vow to surpass her brother, her pride, her burden. "I absolutely can't lose." Gilfaz smiled warmly, stepping forward. "Well now, that was truly spectacular. You're strong, Leica. Learning new things is pure joy. This was time very well spent." He extended his hand to her with a confident smile. "This won't be the last time. Let's fight again someday, Leica." Her eyes widened slightly, a faint blush coloring her cheeks. For the first time, she felt warmth, not from Leica, but from his words. Gilfaz smiled calmly and said, "Let's spar again sometime, Leica. Why don't you take a rest for now? I'm already looking forward to our next match." Leica looked at him, still trembling from exhaustion. Then she gently reached out and held his hand. "I'm no match for you," she admitted softly, her voice tinged with frustration and admiration. "It's a complete defeat." He smiled faintly in response, his golden eyes calm and composed. "You fought well," he said, before turning away. A few hours later, deep inside the rift, the scene shifted to the Eldragon family patriarch, a man known across the continent as a one-man army, the strongest wielder of dragon power. Surrounded by a horde of grotesque monsters in the dark depths of the forest, he stood motionless, his gaze cold and merciless. The creatures roared and charged at him from all directions, but the patriarch's expression didn't waver. He unleashed an overwhelming wave of dragon pressure, and the air itself trembled. The weaker monsters collapsed instantly, crushed beneath the weight of his aura. He stepped forward, raising his massive sword, the legendary blade said to have slain 1,000 beasts, and murmured, "Dragon destruction combat art, first form." In a single, blinding flash, his sword sliced through the air. A roar echoed across the forest. When the light faded, the entire monster pack was already in pieces, shredded by a single strike. As the patriarch sheathed his sword, several Eldragon family guards appeared, finishing off the remaining creatures. Then, an armored knight ran toward him and knelt respectfully. "Master Blaza," the knight said urgently, "I bring a report from the academy." The patriarch turned his sharp eyes toward him. "What is it? And why did you come all the way here?" he asked in a cold, commanding tone. The knight bowed deeply and replied, "It's about Lady Leica. She has successfully reached 2-star level, my lord." The patriarch's eyes narrowed, a faint glimmer of interest flickering within them. 2-star. "I see," he muttered. "So, she's finally awakened." His expression turned unreadable, though the corners of his lips curled slightly, not in pride, but in intrigue. The patriarch's cold eyes darkened, a faint sadness flickering within them before vanishing as quickly as it appeared. He muttered to himself, "So what if she's reached 2-star level? It doesn't matter." But one of the knights stepped forward and said respectfully, "Even so, my lord, reaching 2-star level at such a young age is considered remarkable. With Lady Leica's talent, she could reach 4 stars, perhaps even 5, by the time she graduates from Dragon Nest." The patriarch's expression didn't change. "Talent means nothing," he said flatly. "Tell me, when will she become useful? If you came here just to share some trivial report, leave now." His tone was cold enough to freeze the air. The senior knight hesitated, then added, "However, my lord, Lady Leica was defeated." At that, the patriarch's eyes widened slightly, like a deep ocean suddenly stirred by a storm. Defeated? Did she fight one of the older children? He asked, his tone calm but laced with disbelief. The knight shook his head. "No, my lord. The one who defeated Lady Leica was a boy of the same age. His name is Lord Gilfaz." The patriarch's expression changed subtly as he whispered, "Gilfaz." A faint trace of emotion crossed his face. "That woman's child. True, she bore a talent suited for combat, but she died when he was born, didn't she?" The knight nodded. "Yes, my lord. And yet, Lord Gilfaz managed to defeat Lady Leica without being taught by anyone. He even reached the 2-star level through his own strength." The patriarch fell silent for a moment, then turned away with a low murmur. "I see, then we may begin the first trial." The knight, startled, quickly protested. "With all due respect, my lord, isn't it too soon? They've only been learning formal combat for a month. Most haven't even reached 1 star yet." The patriarch's gaze sharpened. "So what?" he replied coldly. "Whether they've trained or not, death visits all equally. Only the strong survive. Those who cannot overcome even the first trial, regardless of their star level, are unworthy to bear the Eldragon name." The knight bowed his head. "As expected of your words, my lord." The patriarch then turned toward the cave and said suddenly, "Call Fyra." The knight looked up, startled. "She will oversee the contents and supervision of the trial," the patriarch continued. "Have her monitor everything closely." "As you command." As the knight left, the patriarch's eyes narrowed, his thoughts turning toward Gilfaz once again. That boy, truly fascinating. The next day, at the morning light bathed the training grounds where students of the Eldragon family practice their combat techniques. The sound of clashing weapons and roaring energy filled the air. Among them, Lingus was busy honing his skills in Strike Dragon combat art, his movements growing sharper by the day. On the other side, Gilfaz, as usual, was performing an unorthodox form of training, balancing enormous rocks on his shoulders and hands. Sweat rolled down his face, but his focus never wavered. "Today's menu," he muttered to himself, 2 large and 2 medium stones. Just like dragon breath, controlled and destructive. This was one of the legendary training methods created by the 15th Eldragon head, a combat art for body enhancement designed so that even children could master it with proper focus. Watching him, Lingus frowned and called out, "Aren't you going to train yourself, Gilfaz?" Gilfaz raised a brow. "What are you talking about? I am training." "No, not this kind of physical training," Lingus clarified. "I mean actual training in Strike Dragon combat art." Gilfaz sighed, brushing dust from his hands. "I've already learned it." Lingus froze. "You only started learning it a few moments ago." A small, confident smile appeared on Gilfaz's face. "Of course. I've already mastered it." Then, narrowing his eyes slightly, he added, "More importantly, your energy flow is wrong, Lingus." Lingus blinked. What?" Without another word, Gilfaz dropped the rocks, releasing a faint golden aura. "Turn around," he said. Lingus obeyed, and suddenly felt his body grow lighter. His feet lifted an inch off the ground. Wait, am I floating?" Gilfaz nodded, his dragon energy flowing through Lingus's body. "This is the correct flow of Strike Dragon combat art. Feel the dragon's breath through your core." Lingus could barely contain his amazement. "Thank you so much. You've really mastered it, Lord Gilfaz, as expected of you." Gilfaz simply smirked, folding his arms. "Of course I have." But suddenly, Gilfaz's eyes widened. He looked at Lingus and shouted in surprise, "You were doubting me? What kind of person are you?" Lingus immediately flustered. "And no, that's not what I meant. I'm sorry. It's just, this is the first time anyone other than my father has ever taught me. I've always been desperate to improve." He looked down, embarrassed. "But Lord Gilfaz, you already possess martial arts powerful enough to defeat Lady Leica, so I thought Strike Dragon combat arts might feel too simple and boring for you." Gilfaz exhaled softly, then raised his hand into a calm, precise posture. "That's not true at all," he said with a faint smile. "In fact, I'm truly impressed by the stability of Strike Dragon combat arts." In his mind, he reflected silently, "After all, my own technique, Dragon Destruction combat art, wasn't well received by my sons back then. They said it was too complex and difficult. Then he explained, his tone turning slightly nostalgic, dragon destruction combat art may be complicated, but it offers overwhelming power. It's a combat system that begins with the first form, progresses through the second, then the third and fourth forms. And beyond those lies the special form, one that I developed in my battle against Leica. Each form serves as an elixir, leading to the final form, which unleashes divine dragon-level destruction. He smiled faintly. I'm curious to see how the modern dragon techniques are handled now. Perhaps they've been simplified or refined. Either way, how exciting. Then, turning back to Lingus, Gilfaz added, anyway, since I've already finished learning Strike Dragon combat arts, I'm just training my body as usual. Everyone should learn at their own pace. Lingus hesitated for a moment, then asked quietly, Lord Gilfaz, could you train me? His eyes gleamed with hope. I want you to instruct me like you just did. Gilfaz blinked, taken aback. You really want me to train you? Yes, Lingus said firmly. I know it's a ridiculous request, but I want to get stronger. Even just a little. Gilfaz studied him for a moment, then nodded. I don't mind. Lingus's face lit up. Really? You'll actually teach me? Gilfaz crossed his arms, smiling faintly. What's with that reaction? You were the one asking, weren't you? I don't lie. If you want my teaching, then prove you're worthy of it. Before Lingus could respond, a familiar voice echoed nearby. In that case, a soft yet determined voice said, I'd like to be trained as well. Both Gilfaz and Lingus turned to see Leica standing there. Her cheeks were slightly red, her expression both shy and serious. Lingus froze. Lady Leica, you also want Lord Gilfaz to train you? Leica stepped forward proudly. Is there a problem with that? She asked with a small smirk. Honestly, I thought no one my age could defeat me. I was confident I'd be the next head of the family. But in our battle yesterday, you completely overwhelmed me, Gilfaz. You even manifested a lightning aura and used it better than I could. She smiled softly, her tone carrying a hint of admiration. My pride was completely shattered. Lingus coughed awkwardly, trying to hide his discomfort. I think that's my cue to stay quiet. Leica continued, her voice filled with excitement. But I want to grow stronger, strong enough to surpass my brother, and even you, Gilfaz. So please, train me too. Gilfaz looked at her for a long moment, thoughtful. Then he smiled faintly. Is that so? Then I'll train you. He turned to face both of them, eyes gleaming with quiet determination. Leica looked at him with a faint smile. Is that no good? I knew it. Since you're also a successor candidate in training, your enemies must feel awkward. Gilfaz paused at her words, thinking to himself, successor, huh? I've never really cared about that. Lingus glanced toward him and muttered under his breath, so that's the illegitimate child. Still, he's the head's eldest son, he'll definitely be a candidate too. But before any tension could rise, Gilfaz brushed aside his thoughts and spoke calmly, I don't mind. But, is your body truly alright? That wound should have kept you from moving for at least a month. Leica nodded confidently. I used a recovery potion, so there's no problem with that. You really don't need to worry about strange things. Gilfaz leaned closer to Lingus and whispered, that ridiculous potion still works like a miracle, I see. Lingus grinned. If you mean the potion from the entrance exam, that one wasn't nearly as strong. Knowing Lady Leica, she probably used a proper potion this time. Gilfaz smirked. What an amazing error this turned out to be. Leica's cheeks flushed slightly. What do you mean by that? Without the recovery potion, I really wouldn't have been able to move for a month. More importantly, you'll train me, right? She hesitated, then added, you must need time to train yourself too. Gilfaz smiled and nodded. Don't worry about it. I'd never refuse someone young with ambition. At those words, both Leica and Lingus gave him an incredulous look. What did this guy just say? Leica huffed, crossing her arm. Hey, you brat, you're young too, aren't you? Lingus made a weird face. We're the same age, so why are you talking like some old man? Gilfaz put on a playful puppy-like expression. That's true. He chuckled softly. Are you sure about this, Leica? I'm the one who defeated you, remember? She met his gaze firmly. It doesn't matter. I can't afford to be picky. If becoming stronger means getting closer to becoming the head, I'll do whatever it takes. Her determination was unmistakable. Gilfaz crossed his arms and warned her sternly. Back when you picked a fight with me, before you even mentioned the headship to Dillion, why are you so obsessed with becoming the head? Leica's expression darkened, her voice turning serious. Well, that's obvious, she said quietly. If I don't become the head, marriage is my only future. A political marriage, at that. At best, I'd be someone's cousin's unpleasant wife. At worst, someone's concubine. Hearing those cold, disgusting words, Gilfaz's anger flared instantly. What the hell is that bullshit? He snapped, his face shadowed with fury. But Leica continued calmly, of course, the Eldergon bloodline is important, especially among the 4 great houses. You know that much yourself. Our true source of power is unique, which means it can't be used in countless ways. Gilfaz's blood boiled again. Let's run, he muttered under his breath, shaking with rage. You bastards make me sick just thinking about it. He clenched his fists tightly, barely containing himself. What do you take your pupils for, you fools? Those damn customs. I'll destroy them. Before he could say another word, a firm voice cut through the air. Please, may I have your attention? The instructor announced loudly. Leica blinked. What's going on? She asked. Lingus, pale-faced, whispered nervously, oh no. After what Gilfaz said, we're going to get our heads chopped off for sure. But Gilfaz didn't seem to care. He sighed and muttered, what a lousy timing, right at a moment like this. Suddenly, the giant screen flickered to life, revealing a red-haired girl. The instructor raised his voice, starting today, a new instructor will be joining us. Despite her busy schedule, she has personally come to guide you all. Be grateful. This person will take good care of every one of you. At that moment, from Leica's side, a young and confident woman stepped forward. She was beautiful, with a commanding presence that filled the room. Leica blinked in confusion. Hey, are you, Lady Freya? The woman smiled and gave a playful wink. Excellent reflexes, she said teasingly. And your aura quality isn't bad either. Leica stood frozen, unable to believe what she was seeing. I didn't even sense her presence at all, she thought, stunned. Gilfaz narrowed his eyes. Who in the world are you? Before he could get an answer, Lingus tugged at his sleeve. What are you saying, you idiot? He hissed. The instructor stepped forward again. That person over there is Lady Freya. She's a member of the Black Dragon Corps, and carries the title, Freya of Gale. With a cheerful smile, Freya waved her hand. Nice to meet you all. Instructor Freya's sharp eyes swept across the candidates before settling on one figure in particular. And you must be Lord Gilfaz, she said with a knowing smile. Gilfaz nodded politely. Indeed. You're not surprised to see me? She asked, tilting her head curiously. There's nothing particularly shocking here, Gilfaz replied calmly. Then, glancing at her stance, he added with genuine interest. However, you seem to possess quite an intriguing technique. Freya raised an eyebrow at his boldness, a faint smirk crossing her lip. What a confident brat, she thought. No wonder the head takes such an interest in him. Gilfaz, however, was completely absorbed in his observation. Her stealth technique is incredible, but even more fascinating is the flow of her martial energy. He focused his senses. The flow of etheric true source power is concentrated in her lower body. Yet the pattern, it's unlike anything I've ever seen before. He muttered under his breath. Could that be why her footsteps make no sound even with those shoes? What kind of martial art is this? How exciting. Freya stepped forward, her voice clear and confident. As you've heard, I will be your instructor from today onward. Let's all do our best together. The room filled with murmurs of awe. That's Freya of Gale, one student whispered. Another added, she's from the Black Dragon Corps. The senior instructor nodded gravely. Lady Freya is a 6-star rank powerhouse of the Black Dragon Corps. Learn all you can from her. Gasps and whispers echoed through the hall. The Black Dragon Corps, directly under the head himself, someone murmured in disbelief. Why would someone like her show up here so suddenly? Another student wondered aloud. A brave candidate raised his hand. Will you really be teaching us, Lady Freya? She gave a warm, teasing smile. Of course. Why do you ask? However, her tone shifted, playful yet sharp. That's only if you pass my test. If you do, I'll gladly teach you. The class fell silent at the word test. When she revealed what it was, jaws dropped. Don't worry, she said lightly. It's simple. Take this crystal ball, and survive for 1 month in Poison Dragon Mountain. The entire room froze. Lingus's mouth fell open. Poison Dragon Mountain? Holy shit, that's a nostalgic name. Gilfaz's expression darkened slightly as memories surfaced. Poison Dragon Mountain, a region crawling with venomous beasts. Even brushing against a single weed there could be fatal. A deadly place indeed. He smirked faintly to himself. I used to train there often, in my many past lives. Painful, yes, but effective. Then his eyes narrowed. But for these kids, isn't that a bit too much? Freya continued, if your crystal breaks or gets lost during the trial, you fail on the spot. A trembling boy raised his hand. Instructor, what happens if we fail? Freya's smile didn't waver. Naturally, she said, you'll be expelled. But if you survive, she looked around the room, her eyes gleaming. Then you will become my student. Instructor Freya explained calmly, the poisons can be handled with the proper breathing art, the dragon technique. As long as you keep your crystal intact, there's nothing to worry about. It's simple. Her tone turned matter-of-fact. But this is a mountain full of monsters. She released her aura and added casually, then defeat them. Otherwise you won't have food to eat, and you'll be dead before the month passes. A boy shouted, can dragon-slaying combat art handle those creatures? Freya smiled. Don't worry, you still have 5 whole days before the trial begins. In those 5 days you'll each choose one weapon discipline from the Eldergon family foundation arts to train in. If you find a way to fight the monsters and survive, the trial will be easy enough. If you can't master your weapon in those 5 days, her gaze sharpened and a sparkle flashed in her eyes. Then I won't be responsible for what happens to you out there. A nervous hand went up. If things get dangerous, you'll help us, right? Freya's expression was cool. Oh, my dear, this is Eldergon. The weak are crushed, and only the strong survive. If you can't win, that's the end of you. It's only natural. If you can't even clear a simple test, then lie down on a bed of poison and slowly sleep with the monster. Silence fell. Disappointment and dread rippled through the gathered candidates. The atmosphere grew tight and tense. Gilfaz watched them all and felt an odd dissonance in his chest. Is this Eldergon the same as the one I remember? He wondered. Is it the same place I loved, the family I would protect? Strange images rose in his mind, a child's face, a grandson's laughter, scenes from a long-ago life. He couldn't place where those memories began or ended. For a moment he simply paused, lost in the weight of it. Freya clapped once, breaking the silence. All right, that's enough talk. I will now distribute the martial manuals for each weapon. Come and collect the manual for the weapon you want. The distribution of the martial manuals began. Students lined up, each uncertain about which weapon to choose. Gilfaz stood still for a moment, deep in thought. Which one should I pick? He wondered, his hand hesitating in midair. A flicker of doubt crossed his face. What do I do? What should I choose? Lingus, noticing his hesitation, leaned in. You should choose the spear, he whispered. You used it during the entrance trial, didn't you? Gilfaz's tension faded, and he gave a small nod. Thank you, that helps a lot. Across from him, Leica examined the manuals with narrowed eye. They're all so tough, she muttered. Even the basics of the great sword art are thunderous. Gilfaz turned to her. Wait, Leica. You should choose swordsmanship. She blinked, surprised. Why me? He pointed to a section on the wall. Because it'll make up for what you currently lack. Leica looked doubtful. Well, if you say so, I'll try. Gilfaz smiled. Then I'll go with what suits me best. Freya clapped her hands sharply. Everyone, take your manuals. For the next 5 days, train until the trial begins. Her smile turned wicked. And if you want to live, train as if your life depends on it. Otherwise, you'll just die. The room went silent. A chill ran down every spine. But Freya wasn't done. One more thing, she added with a grin. Senior students from the reference pavilion will also be participating. Their goal? To steal your crystal. A gasp echoed through the group. Lingus's eyes widened. Wait, what? Senior students? Freya nodded. Yes. They're 10-year veterans. All rank 2 stars or higher. They'll take the same trial as you. Their mission is to hunt you down and take your crystal. However, since your numbers are greater and the poison dragon mountain is vast, you might not even meet them. Her tone turned cold. But if you do, they will be hunting you. Lingus threw up his hands. Not only monsters, but senior students too. Leica frowned, her face tense. Those seniors are strong. Even I might not handle being ambushed by several at once. Most of the others won't survive at all. But Gilfaz seemed entirely unbothered. His expression stayed calm, almost relaxed. He accepted his manual, flipping through its pages with quiet confidence. This will do just fine, he murmured. If one person can't handle it alone, then a small group of 2 or 3 could work. Teaming up isn't forbidden, at least not for monster hunting. The more hands, the better. He looked toward Leica and Lingus. That might be a good idea for you too. Leica opened her mouth to argue but paused. After a moment, she nodded slowly. You're right, Gilfaz. That actually makes sense. Lingus asked, what about you, Lord Gilfaz? What will you do? Gilfaz gave his usual charming smile. That calm, confident look that made him seem untouchable. Of course, he said lightly, I'll enjoy it alone. Leica nearly tripped over her own feet. What? Alone? You can't be serious, she shouted, like 1,000 weights had dropped on her head. But Gilfaz only chuckled and waved her off. Come on, let's get something to eat before we start training. Leica glared. You're quite the odd one, aren't you? Linga sighed, shaking his head. That lord really is different from the rest of us. 5 days later at Poison Dragon Mountain, the candidates stood ready, each wearing protective suits and holding their chosen weapon. The forest around them was thick, misty, and filled with an eerie silence. Lingasa's voice trembled. Good weather, for a trial, I guess. Another cadet muttered, I'm not here for glory, just survival. At that moment, Freya appeared before them, her red hair glowing under the morning sun. A perfect day for a test, she said with a sly smile. Well then, shall we begin? So, meanwhile, Lingus gripped his weapon tightly, his hands trembling. Lady Leica, he said, his voice unsteady, it's finally time for the test. Leica nodded in response. Even Lingus himself seemed nervous. He glanced toward Lord Gilfaz and muttered, is it really okay for someone like me to travel alongside Lady Leica? In his heart, he thought, there are so many students from noble families here. Yet I'm just a commoner. I don't even have a star. He felt small and foolish, looking down on himself. Suddenly, a purple-haired girl smiled at him. We're the same, Lingus, she said gently. So why do you look so embarrassed now? Holding his spear, he turned toward her with a cheeky grin. Raymond, you're really kind to me, he replied. She blushed slightly. I still can't believe it either. A commoner like me traveling with Lady Leica, who belongs to the Dragon Nest East Hall. Even that yellow-haired boy is from the same place. Leica then spoke brightly, her tone full of warmth. It doesn't matter if you're a noble or a commoner, she said. I invited you all because I recognize your ability. Everyone was stunned. They turned to her, listening closely. Lingus gripped his spear tighter and said, I understand, Lady Leica. I'll do my very best not to become a burden. The yellow-haired boy nodded. I'll work hard to meet your expectation. Leica smiled softly. Yeah, I'm counting on all of you. Remember, you're not alone in this. At that moment, everyone realized how deserving she was of becoming a patriarch. Her humility and kindness made her shine like an innocent child. Gilfaz watched quietly, thinking, Leica truly is a good child of our family. He smiled and said, I can't wait for the beginning of this test. His excitement was clear. Behind him, 2 younger students whispered nervous. She's amazing, one said. I feel nervous just being near her. She's from the head bloodline. The other added, how can I calm down in front of her? Leica turned toward them with a light frown. Don't lump me in with him. I'm nervous too, she admitted. So let's just do our best in this test. Gilfaz blinked in surprise. Is there really any reason to be nervous? Leica and all the top students are gathered here. Why are you all so anxious? Everyone turned to look at him, their faces saying bro, seriously? There are plenty of reasons to be nervous. Because of you, they all thought. Leica glanced at Gilfaz and sighed. You really don't understand, do you? These juniors feel nervous because you're here. You've gathered the most promising students from the entire class, and your presence alone puts pressure on. Gilfaz chuckled softly. I see. Offense and defense both look solid, he said. Your test will be a real challenge. Leica spoke nervously. Right. Lord Gilfaz is as confident as ever. But before anyone could respond, Faria arrived, her presence commanding immediate attention. Well then, everyone's gathered, right? She said. Oh my. You've decided to travel in groups with your friends? That's fine. She cast a sharp glance at Gilfaz, her tone turning serious. It seems some of you haven't fully mastered your weapon arts yet, so this isn't a bad decision. Faria raised her hand. Let's begin right away. Everyone should have their crystal orb, correct? Your task is simple. Spend 1 month inside the Poison Dragon Mountain without leaving it, while holding onto your crystal orb. She continued, explaining clearly, as long as you possess the orb until the end, you pass the test. All of the orbs are identical, so take care not to lose them. One of the cadets hesitantly raised his hand. Then, in other words, if someone loses it, it could be stolen by our seniors, right? Faria nodded. Exactly. Once you enter the mountain, upper-class students will also join in to steal your orb. Prepare yourselves to fight and defend them. Gilfaz listened intently, his eyes focused. Every word from Faria was absorbed serious. He already sensed the upcoming challenge. Meanwhile, in the distance, 2 senior students were watching. One of them, a tall boy with a smug grin, whispered, Hey, most of those kids haven't even reached 1 star yet, right? His comrade chuckled darkly. Yeah, it's going to be easy to take down those weaklings. Their mocking laughter sent a wave of fear through the juniors. Many of them felt a chill, despair spreading across their faces after hearing the senior's word. Faria, however, didn't let the tension linger. Her voice echoed across the field. "The explanation is over," she announced firmly. "The test begins now." All the Eldergon descendants rushed toward the rugged mountain area. The air was tense, and Leica called out, her voice filled with concern. "Gilfaz, you absolutely have to survive." Gilfaz gave a firm nod. "You too," he said calmly. At that moment, he decided to separate from the group and take his own path. Leica turned back and commanded, "Let's go, everyone." Behind her, Instructor Freya and Gilfaz both looked confused. As the group moved ahead, Gilfaz smiled faintly and said, "Be careful." Leica suddenly noticed him still standing there. "Why are you here? You need to go too, you know." He blinked, realizing, oops, that's right. "My apologies, I got a bit carried away." She tilted her head slightly. "Carried away? Not nervous?" Gilfaz chuckled softly. "Not at all. I'm not nervous," he said, then turned toward the instructor. "Well then, instructor, I'll be heading out for my raid." Freya stared at him, speechless, a hint of disbelief in her eye. "What a strange child," she murmured. Later that night, Instructor Freya looked out into the dark forest and said quietly, "Everything should be all right." She turned toward another instructor and asked, "What do you think about the test?" The man beside her frowned. "Honestly, it might still be too early for these new students." A third senior instructor nodded in agreement. "That's true. Even though they've learned the basics, only a few of them have truly struggled in real combat. Their experience is still lacking. I wonder how many will actually pass." Both instructors suddenly felt a chill when Freya's expression turned cold. She stared at them with a faint smile and said, "Don't worry. Poison Dragon Mountain may have many poisonous creatures, but the monsters there aren't too strong or numerous. Most of them are only at the 1 or 2-star level." She smiled as she explained further, "So they should be fine for the most part." Despite her calm tone, both instructors felt uneasy. "Why yes, I understand," one of them stammered. Then Freya's smile slowly faded, and her voice turned low. "Well, I'll release that thing later, though." The two men froze. One of them blinked in confusion. "Excuse me, what did you just say?" But Freya ignored him completely, pretending nothing had happened. With a cheerful tone, she suddenly announced, "All right, Senior Eldergon cadets, it's time. Head out now." Her lips curved into a wicked grin. She was giving permission for the senior students to raid the junior camp. Her plan was cruel. She wanted to see how many would survive. A soft chuckle escaped her. "Let's see how they handle this," she murmured, her eyes gleaming with malice. Meanwhile, deep inside the forest, the students were buzzing with excitement about their test. Among them, our prodigy Gilfaz was quietly scouting through the dense trees when he sensed movement. The seniors were approaching. "There they are. Found one already," a girl whispered. A senior boy beside her laughed arrogantly. "Still hanging around in a place like this? What an idiot." The girl readied her bow and shot an arrow straight toward Gilfaz. But he didn't even flinch. His expression remained calm, almost bored. "Pathetic," he muttered. As the arrow flew, he caught it effortlessly with his bare hand, then snapped it in half with a smirk. "I was waiting for you, brats," he said, his tone sharp and dangerous. The senior students froze, trembling in fear. "Oh my God, what's wrong with this guy?" one of them whispered. Before they could react, Gilfaz moved like lightning. The girl barely had time to finish her sentence when he rushed forward, his presence like a small but terrifying beast. "Now then," he said, smiling fiercely, "let's play." A moment later, chaos erupted. Gilfaz attacked without hesitation, swift, precise, and merciless. The seniors couldn't even fight back as he struck them down one after another. That night, the mountain echoed with the sound of his overwhelming power. A week later, the scene shifted to the dense forest where Leica and her team were battling fierce tree frogs. With perfect coordination, they struck in rhythm, dodging, countering, and taking down one creature after another. Leica led from the front, her voice sharp and confident. "Keep your formation steady. You're all doing great," she commanded. Her teammates followed every order without hesitation. Even amid the chaos, they couldn't help but be amazed by her strength. "Lady Leica is incredible," one whispered in awe. "She's taking down those frogs like it's nothing." Leica sliced through another wave of monsters, her movements swift and ruthless. Then, with a calm smile, she said, "Don't be so surprised. I'm already at 2 stars, and for me, a bunch of tree frogs are nothing." Despite her composure, she was impressed by how much her team had grown. Since the start of the test, every one of them had become stronger. Instructor Freya would be proud, she thought to herself. During the past week, both Selena and Raymond had successfully reached 1 star. The two of them were overjoyed, proudly showing their progress. "It's all thanks to Lady Leica," Raymond said excitedly. "Without her guide, we wouldn't have made it this far." Leica smiled softly at their words, but her eyes turned toward Lingus, who stood a few steps behind. He still hadn't awakened his star. His expression was quiet, almost downcast. The others noticed and quickly reassured him. "Don't worry, Lingus," one said kindly. "You're growing stronger too. You're not left behind." Leica nodded slightly, watching him. She could see the determination burning behind his calm eye. The team comforted Lingus, telling him there was no need to rush. He gave a small, grateful smile. The tension in his face softened. Leica looked at him and said gently, "You've been taking down these frogs even without a star. That alone is incredible." She paused, then added, "And besides, you trained with Gilfaz before the test. Your spearwork is already flawless. It's only a matter of time before you awaken your star." The team nodded in agreement, but as the forest began to darken, Leica raised her hand. "It's getting late. Let's head back to base. It's too dangerous to keep moving around at night." They all agreed and made their way back through the quiet wood. However, as they arrived at their camp, something felt off. A shadow stood waiting for them, an upperclassman. The moment they spotted him, everyone instinctively moved into defensive position. Leica stepped forward, her tone calm but firm. "Are you here to steal our crystal orb?" The man smirked. "That's exactly why I'm here." His confidence sent a chill through the group. Facing an upper-class student wasn't something they had planned for. Leica's eyes narrowed. "I see, then I won't hold back." At that instant she realized they had finally encountered one of the senior challengers. And judging by his aura, he was at least a 2-star warrior. Leica tightened her grip on her weapon and warned, "You should turn back. You might not be able to handle all of us at once." But the man only laughed. "You're wrong," he said coolly. "Completely wrong." Just as Leica confronted the upper-class student, 3 more figures appeared from the shadows behind. They were upperclassmen, each at 1-star rank, surrounding Leica's team from all sides. The leading senior smirked arrogantly. "You might be strong, Lady Leica," he said mockingly, "but do you really think you can protect your teammates and still take us all down?" Leica glared at him, her stance unwavering. "I'm not giving up," she replied sharply. In an instant, the two clashed, their weapons sparking under the moonlight. "Stay safe," Leica shouted to her teammate. "I'll handle this 2-star myself." As Leica fought fiercely, a chaotic battle broke out between the rest of the team and the upper class. The seniors tried to coordinate an ambush, attempting to surround the group and seize their crystal orb, but Leica's team refused to back down. Meanwhile, Lingus found himself face to face with one of the toughest 1-star opponents. He tightened his grip on his spear, unsure of what to do. "What should I do now?" he thought, as his mind flashed back to a memory. A conversation he once had with Gilfa. That day, Lingus had asked nervously, "Lord Gilfa, what should I do if I ever face a powerful opponent?" Gilfaz had crossed his arms, smirking slightly. "Simple," he said. "Just give up." Lingus had been stunned by the blunt answer. Give up." Gilfaz chuckled and added, "It's the most natural thing to do. You can't hope to defeat a 3-star or a 4-star on your own." But his tone softened as he continued, "If you're fighting someone around your level, say, a 1-star, then you might stand a chance." Lingus had listened carefully as Gilfaz explained further. "The strongest monsters on this mountain are 2-stars at best, and the senior students, they're mostly around that level too. So, you've got a small chance, Lingus." Lingus's eyes had widened. "A chance?" Gilfaz nodded firmly. "Yeah, the tactic isn't complicated. You just need to wait for the right opening. Be patient, and strike when your opponent least expects it. That's how you can flip the battle in your favor." The memory faded, and Lingus exhaled sharply, his focus returning to the present fight. His opponent lunged forward, but this time, Lingus didn't step back. He was ready to wait, for that one perfect moment. Back in that memory, Lingus had nervously asked, "Lord Gilfaz, how am I even supposed to find an opening?" Gilfaz had chuckled soft, resting his hand on his sword. "You don't find one," he said. "You endure until one appears." Lingus blinked in disbelief. "Endure?" Gilfaz nodded calmly. "That's your only option when facing someone stronger. You have no chance of creating an opening on your own. You must keep enduring, no matter how much it hurts, even if you feel like you're dying. Because if you can't endure, you'll never get the chance to win." The words had shaken Lingus, but Gilfaz's tone remained steady. "With your current level," the prodigy continued, "you should be able to hold out, even against someone as strong as Leica." Lingus had looked doubtful, and Gilfaz smiled knowingly. "Have faith in yourself, Lingus. Don't overthink. The opening will come natural. When it does, trust your instincts, and let your spear do the rest." Those words now echoed in Lingus's head as he faced his opponent, a fierce 1-star upperclassman whose strikes felt like hammers. "I'm weaker, but I have to endure," Lingus thought, blocking another blow that sent vibrations through his arm. The minutes dragged on. He kept defending, barely dodging, never counterattacking, just enduring. Each time he survived another strike, his opponent grew more and more frustrated. Finally, with a roar of anger, the upperclassman leapt into the air, raising his blade high for a crushing downward strike. That was the moment Lingus had been waiting for. His eyes flashed with focus. Now, he thrust his spear upward with all his strength. The weapon pierced through his opponent's guard, landing a clean hit and knocking him to the ground. The senior gasped in disbelief before collapsing, unconscious. Lingus stood trembling, staring at his hand. His spear gleamed faintly, its core beginning to glow. A golden star mark appeared beside him. He had done. Lingus had earned his first star. Meanwhile, Leica was still locked in battle against her 2-star opponent. The clash of steel echoed across the forest as she unleashed a powerful sword technique, one that Gilfaz himself had taught. Too slow, she muttered, sidestepping the final swing. Her blade flashed once, and her opponent fell to the ground, defeated. Leica exhaled sharply, then dashed back to her team, only to find that everyone had already won their own battle. The team broke into cheers, exhausted but overjoyed. Lingus was surrounded by his teammates as they congratulated him. He smiled, breathless but proud. I did it. Now that everyone on my team has at least 1 star, she said confidently. We'll be ready for even tougher opponent. But just as they were about to head back, Leica looked toward the distant ridge, curiosity in her eyes. I wonder what Gilfaz is doing right now, she murmured. Unknown to them, somewhere deep within the mountains, Gilfaz was single-handedly demolishing a group of upperclassmen. Each strike of his sword echoed like thunder. The so-called elites were sent flying one after another, helpless before the reincarnated prodigy. To him, the battle wasn't even a challenge. It was just practice. She excitedly says, those upperclassmen who managed to escape from Gilfaz now call him a terrifying monster. After all, Gilfaz isn't just any student, he's the insane prodigy born into the legendary Eldragon family. Moments later, the upperclassmen were running in panic. One of the seniors frantically shouted for help, praying that Gilfaz would stop and spare them. But Gilfaz had no intention of following their pleas. He dragged along one of the senior boys he had just defeated, his expression calm yet menacing. The terrified senior trembled in fear and confusion, unable to comprehend what kind of monster or demon was holding him, especially when Gilfaz carried the massive corpse of a giant snake beast effortlessly in one hand. With a sharp grin, Gilfaz mocked them, asking what their problem was. No one else wants to play? He taunted, his voice laced with amusement. Pathetic. You upperclassmen are really useless. His words sent chills down their spines. The terrified seniors began shouting that he was insane as they continued to flee for their lives. Some questioned why a lower-classman like Gilfaz was the one hunting them down when it was supposed to be the other way around, that seniors hunted the juniors. But now, everything had reversed. He was no longer the prey. He had become the predator. Suddenly, one of the panicked seniors tripped and fell. As he struggled to get back on his feet, he froze, his eyes widening in horror. The moment the fallen senior lifted his head, he froze. Gilfaz was already standing right in front of him, his crimson eyes faintly glowing in the dim light. Gilfaz let out a quiet sigh. I'm getting tired of chasing you, he said, extending a hand as if to help the senior up. But before he could even react, the senior's eyes went wide with terror. His body stiffened, then went completely limp as he collapsed unconscious at Gilfaz's feet. Tilting his head slightly, Gilfaz frowned in mild confusion. What just happened to this guy? He muttered, glancing around. His tone turned sharper as he called out, what's wrong with those bastard upperclassmen? Why are they suddenly acting so scared and defensive? Cheap idiots. Pathetic cowards. A sneer curved across his lips as he continued, they were so aggressive when they first saw me, now look at them, running like frightened animals. He chuckled darkly and shouted, don't leave me behind now, his voice echoing through the forest. Just then, Gilfaz sensed a faint presence nearby. His expression shifted as he turned sharply toward his side. Hey, he called out, his tone teasing, if you're watching me, why not come closer? You'll get a better view. When there was no reply, he chuckled under his breath. Still hiding, huh? Guess you're another crazy one, just like me. Then, glancing up with a grin, he added, if you're not stopping me, that means I'm not doing anything wrong, right? His eyes glinted as he said, in that case, I'll stop holding back, and keep playing with those bratty seniors. From the direction where he had sensed the presence, a figure slowly emerged. It was one of the overseers assigned to monitor the examination. Beads of sweat rolled down the overseer's cheek as he whispered to himself, unable to comprehend what kind of child Gilfaz truly was. He had witnessed everything. Gilfaz single-handedly defeating an entire group of senior upperclassmen who were supposed to be far stronger than him. What shocked him even more was that Gilfaz had sensed his hidden presence, something no ordinary examinee should have been capable of. Realizing the gravity of what he had just seen, the overseer's expression hardened. He knew he had to report everything immediately. Meanwhile, at the camp outside Poison Dragon Mountain, Freya was taken aback when several observers gathered to make their reports. According to them, it had already been a week since the examination began, and nearly 30% of the lower-classmen had withdrawn. That meant many juniors had been unable to withstand the harsh environment and deadly toxins of the Poison Dragon Mountain. The remaining candidates, however, were gradually adapting, learning to survive both the terrain and the danger surrounding them. One of the observers added that they didn't expect many more lower-classmen to withdraw from the test. But when Freya asked about the senior upperclassmen situation, the observers exchanged uneasy glances, their silence speaking louder than words. None of them could bring themselves to answer her directly. Freya's expression darkened in irritation, her patience wearing thin. "Speak clearly," she ordered, her voice sharp enough to make the observers flinch. Finally, one of them gathered the courage to speak. "The senior upperclassmen, they've been constantly failing, ma'am. They're unable to defeat the prodigy, Lord Gilfaz. In fact, they haven't even been able to overcome the juniors." Freya frowned, momentarily lost in thought. "Then why are they running away?" she asked coldly. "What exactly are they escaping from? To my knowledge, there are no monsters within Poison Dragon Mountain strong enough to threaten senior upper class, so what are they hiding from?" Her subordinates exchanged anxious looks, unable to give a clear answer. None of them could explain how Gilfaz had managed to defeat all the senior examinees. Freya's eyes narrowed. "What's going on out there?" she muttered. One of the observers hesitated before finally speaking up. "They weren't running from a monster, Lady Freya," he said softly, his voice trembling. "They were running from Lord Gilfaz himself." Freya's eyes widened slightly, her expression freezing for a brief moment. "From Gilfaz?" she repeated, raising an eyebrow. "Why would they try to run away from him?" The observer took a deep breath, his tone uneasy but firm as he finally revealed the truth. "Because, my lady, Lord Gilfaz has been attacking and hunting the senior upperclassmen. At first, they tried to fight back against Lord Gilfaz," the observer continued, his tone uneasy. "But everyone knows about our prodigy, the strongest in history. Eventually, they had no choice but to run." Another observer stepped forward, his voice trembling slightly. "What kind of person is Lord Gilfaz, really? Based on what I saw, he looked like he was enjoying it, actually enjoying himself. He was laughing as he cut down the senior upperclassmen, hunting them like prey." He shook his head in disbelief. "It was something completely unprecedented." A second observer nodded in agreement. "Even though Lord Gilfaz is the son of the Eldragon family head, he's far from normal. He's no longer just a legendary prodigy of history, he's something beyond that, a monster in human form." Freya listened in silence, her expression unreadable. When she finally spoke, her tone was calm but serious. "I suspected as much," she admitted. "From the very beginning, there was something different about Lord Gilfaz. Unlike the others, he chose to take the exam completely alone." She paused, recalling his actions. "It's absurd when you think about it. An 8-year-old boy venturing into the depths of Poison Dragon Mountain by himself, fighting monsters without hesitation. And when he entered, he looked completely relaxed, as if he had no fear at all." Her gaze hardened as realization sank in. That could only mean one thing: Lord Gilfaz never intended to hide from the senior upperclassmen. From the very start, his goal was clear: he planned to hunt them down himself. As she remembered the look in Gilfaz's eyes when they first met, those calm, piercing eyes filled with something unfathomable, Freya fell silent, her thoughts heavy with unease. Freya couldn't help but think to herself that the boy truly was a monster, something far beyond human comprehension. Just then, one of the observers frowned. "What's that sound?" he asked, glancing around uneasily. Freya's lips curved into a faint smile. "Ah, you hear it too," she said softly. "I've been waiting for them." Moments later, a man approached and bowed respectfully. "Lady Freya," he said, "where should we place the massive cage we brought?" Freya gestured calmly toward an open area nearby. "Leave it there," she instructed, her tone smooth and confident. "You've all done well. Thank you for your work." When the observers turned to look at the cage, their eyes went wide in disbelief. Inside, something massive stirred, the faint echo of a growl rumbling from within. What kind of creature is that?" one of them whispered, his voice trembling. Another followed, alarmed, "Lady Freya, surely you don't mean to release that thing into the mountain, do you?" Even from a distance, the aura radiating from the cage was overwhelming. It was clearly the presence of at least a 3-star level beast, far too powerful for any of the students to face. The very idea of unleashing it during the examination felt insane. But Freya's expression remained calm, almost pleased. "There's no need to worry," she said reassuringly, her tone steady but carrying a hint of something cold beneath. Adjustments have already been made to the creature. Her eyes glinted faintly as she looked toward the dark horizon of Poison Dragon Mountain. Whatever she was planning, it was far from ordinary. Freya's gaze remained fixed on the cage as she spoke, her tone calm yet carrying quiet authority. It will only target individuals of 2-star strength or higher, she said. Ordinary students won't suffer any serious harm. One of the observers, still unsettled, hesitated before asking, but, why release such a creature in the middle of the examination? Freya turned her eyes toward him, her expression unreadable. Because it's a direct order from the family head, Lord Blazer, she replied evenly. Yet, deep in her mind, another thought stirred. She wanted to see it for herself. The strength of the boy their soldiers had begun calling a real monster. She needed to witness whether Lord Gilfa's Eldragon could survive against such a being. With that thought lingering, she gave her command. Release the creature into Poison Dragon Mountain at dawn. The next morning, deep within Poison Dragon Mountain, Lingus and his team suddenly froze as the ground trembled violently beneath their feet. Leica frowned, her instincts flared. I've got a bad feeling about this, she muttered. Raymond glanced around nervously. Could it be the senior upperclassman causing this? Lingus shook his head firmly. No, this feels different. It's probably the work of a beast, maybe a massive angry boar. But Leica couldn't shake her unease. No, she said quietly, scanning the forest around them. Something about this doesn't feel right. A moment later, a second quake erupted, stronger, heavier. The mountain shook violently as a massive tree cracked and began to fall toward them. Move! Leica shouted, pulling the team aside just in time. The enormous trunk slammed into the ground where they'd been standing only seconds earlier, the impact shaking the air around them. As the dust cleared, Leica turned to look, and froze. Her eyes widened in horror, her breath catching in her throat. What is that thing? She whispered. Lingus's face went pale, sweat dripping down his temple. His voice trembled as he spoke. We need to run, now. That's a colossal golem. And with that, the mountain trembles once again. The colossal golem, the beast released by Lady Freya, has finally awakened. Leica and her team now stand face to face with a creature far beyond their limit. Can she protect her comrades against this unstoppable monster? Or will this be the end of their journey inside Poison Dragon Mountain? And what about our prodigy, Lord Gilfa's Eldragon? Will he appear to save his own bloodline's descent?